Hi, I'm Coach Jamie Dreyer from Overhaul Training, and in this video I'm going to show you how I've used my fingertips, the Pure Wave, and PNF stretches to get trigger points out of tight scalene muscles. Now, before I go too far, I want to make sure everybody knows what I'm talking about when I say scalenes. So, here's what I'd like you to do. Take your fingertips, go behind the ear to the base of the skull here, slide down a little bit where it's smooth, but then get a little bit lower to where you start feeling some bumps. That's where the scalene muscles attach to the side of your transverse process, which is the neck vertebrae. Once you're there, you can go ahead and run down farther, and you'll notice that the scalenes run behind the clavicle and attach to the first and second rib. Next thing I want you to notice is I keep saying scalenes in plural. Now that's because you actually have anterior, medial, and posterior fibers in your scalene muscles. When they contract, you've got lateral flexion of the neck. The anterior fibers also give you some forward flexion of the neck as well. All right, now that we all know what we're talking about, let's move forward. Not too long ago, I was working on an apartment that I was moving into. It involved a lot of painting and all sorts of different types of manual labor. And I have this tendency of holding my head off to one side whenever I'm doing this work. And after doing this for days and weeks and months on end during construction, I started to end up with all these trigger points in my scalenes. They got really tight, and the tighter they got, it started putting pressure on my ulnar nerve. Got to the point where I ended up with some ulnar nerve entrapment, and it caused this weird sensation in my left tricep, tingling down my arm, and a weak grip. So what I did is I went home one day, busted the Pure Wave out of the cradle, put on the air cushion stick, and I went ahead and felt around to see where those trigger points were at the top of the muscle where it attaches. Once I found them, I cranked up the Pure Wave. Because I got the air cushion attachment on, I can go pretty strong. I did that for about a minute and a half, and it actually relieved a lot of my symptoms and it felt a lot better. But I wanted to go a little bit further, so I switched out the attachments and grabbed the point stick. Once I had this guy on, I looked for the trigger points down in the lower section of the muscles, right above the clavicle. Placed the point stick in there, looked around and felt around. Now I did this with it off because I didn't want to go searching for the trigger points with this hard attachment just pulsating away right next to my clavicle bone, because if I hit the clavicle, that's not going to be comfortable. So once I found a good spot on the muscle, then I slowly turned the power up until I found the right amount of juice that felt just right. This also I did for about a minute and a half. Now, after using the Pure Wave to kind of get those trigger points to relax, the next thing I needed to do is get the tension. The tension was out, but the length was still contracted and short. So I wanted to increase the length with a stretch to get proper length back into the muscle. Here's what I did. Grabbed a seat, and I needed some place to anchor my hand off to the side, so that way when I could put some traction through the arm into the shoulder, and once you traction the shoulder down, it also then helps keep the rib cage down. As I said earlier, the scalenes attach to the first and second rib. Next thing I needed to do was lean over and get a stretch into my scalenes. Now, when I'm in this position where I'm looking straight on, I'm hitting more of the medial fibers of the scalenes. If I look down more, I'm hitting the posterior fibers, and as I start to look up, I feel it engaging more of the anterior fibers. Now for me, the anterior fibers was where I was tight. So next thing I do is reach up and over, put a little bit of traction on those fibers, and once I'm at the end of my stretch, I take a big breath and hold the breath and engage the muscle for 5 seconds. Gentle contraction. Nothing's really moving, I'm just holding a contraction there. After the 5 seconds are up, I relax the muscle, relax my breath, and I can go a little farther into the stretch. Now from this point, I can either just hang out here and take about anywhere from 5 to 10 deep breaths, and it'll slowly relax farther, or I can continue to do the contract relax that I just demonstrated. I could do that anywhere from 3 to 5 times, depending on how much it feels good, and eventually you kind of just want to give it a break. That's how I get trigger points out of tight scalene muscles. Hi, I'm Coach Jamie Dreyer from Overhaul Training, and in this video I'm going to show you how I've used my fingertips, the Pure Wave, and PNF stretches to get trigger points out of tight scalene muscles. Now, before I go too far, I want to make sure everybody knows what I'm talking about when I say scalenes. So, here's what I'd like you to do. Take your fingertips, go behind the ear to the base of the skull here, slide down a little bit where it's smooth, but then get a